forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Horror Hour TV.
We all go a little mad. Forget you.
Hello and welcome to the Horror Hour, the show where we discuss, debate and disagree on all things horror. We are your hosts, Ben.
Hi, everyone.
George. And Yutaka.
Hello.
And this week we are going to be reviewing my second favourite horror film of all time, Hell House LLC. Now, for those of you who haven't seen this film, a little brief overview. This film came out in 2015. It is an indie found footage film that was later, the rights were bought by Terror Films, directed and written by Stephen Cognetti. And this film goes and talks through an idea of a documentary behind a very strange occurrence that happened in 2009 at a haunted house attraction where something happened and people ended up dying, but we're not quite sure what happened. It's all very sketchy. And this documentary, we managed to find the tapes for what happened, and we basically relive what happened over the Hell House, which is the name of the attraction, and how it unfolded and so on. It's a great film. I really love it, but I'm obviously biased. So I'm not going to start this week. We're going to talk about our pros. We're going to talk about our cons. We're going to give a little bit of an overview. And then we're going to finish by talking about some of our other favourite found footage movies. So, Ben, you just finished it literally about half an hour ago. So it's fresh in your mind. So, Ben, give us your thoughts.
I thought it was really good. I was kind of surprised. It was a weird movie. I wish I had more of a budget because I think that these people could have captured the area more. And I'll get to my flaws in a minute. I only really have one. But overall, I thought it was really creepy. It was really well done. I liked the cast, and I liked the story that they were trying to tell. So I thought it was actually a very solid movie with some solid scares.
Okay. Yutaka, your overall before we jump into pros and cons.
This one's mixed for me. I can't say I love it and I can't say I hate it because there are pros, sure. I think overall, I think writing wise, I liked the story. I thought what they were doing was fun. It was unique. We see so many found footage. And so I think sometimes it's kind of hard to really successfully do that nowadays. But I think for what they had and the budget they had, they did a really good job. I think I really actually loved the cast. They really went all in, and that's something I really appreciated. But there were just some things I just wasn't a fan of. And we'll get to those. But overall, it's still a solid film, but it's not, one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, as I said in last week's episode, which you can go and check out now, we talked about our favorite horror films. I stumbled upon this via social media. I'm always looking for new films to watch, new horror films and found footage films, and this just happened to pop up one day on somebody's list of films that they were underrated and that they found like really scary or just really interesting. And I was like, oh, okay. So I remember screenshotting it on my phone, and a few weeks went by, and I found the screenshot, and I was like, let's watch it. And I don't know what it was about it, but just something really attracted me to the film. As I say, my favorite genre is found footage, so anyway, I always lean towards that anyway. But for me to find a found footage film that had a really great story, a great overall cast that worked together, I felt like it wasn't, some found footage films, the cast, because it's cheap, they get cheap actors, and it doesn't always tell a great story. But this one, I think the main crew and cast of Hell House were all brilliant and really added to that story. And I thought that the setting of where it is just great. It's very claustrophobic, very in this one place. So yeah, for me, it was just, I was like, wow. Like some films, you see these people who say these are great films, you're like, oh, but after that, I was like, I really this is like suddenly, and I watched it so many times after that. And then obviously there's sequels as well, which we'll mention. But yeah, I love it. So I don't, yeah, I can't really say any more than that. But okay, then let's jump into pros then. Well, Yutaka, let's go with you on pros, because it'll probably be quick by the sounds of it, which is odd, but hey.
Yeah, sure. So for a pro, well, it was free on Amazon Prime for me. So that's good. Yeah.
That's your pro.
No, I got more.
I was really about to like turn this live stream off. But so this is the final episode.
I really, really did enjoy the cast. I thought they worked so well together. I just, for the budget, I think they did really good. I will say that. I will say parts of the house, well, we'll get to that, but there were like that basement though, I thought was very creepy. And I did think they did some really good, while predictable, I thought they were still effective jump scares, or just, you get that creepy factor. So I really enjoyed that. I think the shining star though, in my opinion, was Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a great job, and yeah, I really enjoyed the cast, and I do have to give credit to Stephen Cognetti, because the writing was really good. I loved the story. So yeah, those would be my pros. Actually, the clowns, those were legit creepy, and that I was like, okay, that actually gave me like anxiety seeing that. So yeah.
Okay, I like that. Ben, pros?
The pro is pretty much that the entire movie is very entertaining. I was happy watching the movie while I was watching it. I was kind of anxious because I had to finish it so I could jump on this call, but other than that, it kind of added to the anxiety of watching the movie, because there was a lot of really interesting sequences that they pull off really well. I was a big fan of pretty much everyone in the cast. I don't think you could really call out anyone in particular, but they all did a really, really good job. And the way it all ends, not necessarily the last like 5 minutes, like where they go back to Hell House, but like what actually happened on the night, I thought was interesting. I do have a few problems with it, which I'm going to get to in a second. But I do have to say, overall, they really nailed it for the budget that they had. And it is a solid, like, I would have to say, like, maybe 7.5 to 8 out of 10. It's a really solid movie. I'd recommend it to almost anyone.
Honestly, do you know, when it's nice if you go back, guys, to last week's episode at the end, when Ben announced that this would be our next episode and said that George is probably going to be wrong again. It fills me with joy when he says that. Yutaka, I know, just hates everything, so it's fine. But...
yeah, he's a joyless cunt. Just no joy.
Anyway, moving on. Is that all your pros, Ben?
Yeah, that's all my pros.
Yutaka, do you want to respond there, or?
I can't love everything,
I'm joking. Of course you can't. Right. Okay. Well, then my pros. It's
like Dr. Sleep all over again.
I can't wait till we get to that episode, huh? That's going to be a great one.
I think I'm getting sick. I don't know if I'll make it.
Side note, very sad that HBO Max dropped The Overlook. That's like an easy layup for them in terms of a streaming show, and they abandoned it. That's fucking stupid.
Maybe they could do something like Hell House with The Overlook.
Exactly. Like, that's kind of what you should do.
Yeah.
Whatevs.
Anyway, okay. So for me, pros. I mean, I wrote a few, but obviously, I mean, for me, it's everything. I really love the opening sequence. I love how well done it is, and it gives you that feeling of chaos. You just like literally like, what the frig is going on? There's just shit going everywhere, and at first you have no idea. The girl who's going through the house, things happen, like the clown runs through, and you see Sarah running upstairs. Obviously, you don't know who that is at that point, and she's like, "Is that supposed to be happening? Like, what's going on?" You kind of like, "Oh, okay," and you can hear Mac in the behind the wine thing going like, I've got no visual downstairs, know what's going on. You can kind of hear these little things, but you've no idea what's happening. And obviously you still don't find out in that part because it ends quite abruptly and everyone runs outside. Which I just kind of be like, oh my God, like what is going on? So I love that. Again, I love the cast. I think the cast are fantastic. We have Sarah, who is the main girl, played by Ryan Jennifer Jones. I think does a great job. I really liked her. I thought she was brilliant because she obviously was the only. I mean, there were a couple of other females in it, but they weren't as in it for the period length of time. You look confused. What are you saying females for like that?
The way a couple of other females in the movie, like, okay, sound even more creepy if you try.
What?
Well,
you want me to say women? Girls? What would you like me to say?
Actresses, but
They're all actors.
don't say females. That was weird.
Okay, sorry. Jesus. Then you've got Alex, who is the head honcho of Hell House, played by Danny Bellini. And then you've also got Paul, who was mainly the one behind the camera for most of it, played by Gore Abrams. Then you've got Tony, who was the guy who was setting up all the cameras and who nearly left at one point, but then was persuaded to come back. He's played by Jared Hacker. Andrew, or Mac, is played by Adam Schneider. And then Diane Graves, who we see throughout the beginning and the end, who's creating this documentary, played by Alice Balke, I believe. But it's not a huge cast. And for most of it, there's only 4 or 5 of them. So I think that's great because you get time to see like all the different characteristics of everybody. I loved the repetition of the song throughout. Well, the chords throughout, the dun, 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 dun. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And that's really interesting. If anyone chooses to watch the sequels, that song does come up again. And there's actually even more of a backstory behind it. And you're like, oh, okay. So, yeah. I mean, for me, there was some cool scares. It's not a case of jump scares where you're like, Jesus, oh! Like, it's not Scream, and it's not a lot of that. It's very subtle jump scares where you're just like, whoa, and you're kind of like, ooh. Like, it kind of puts you off. There's a lot of, things you can see in the background and think it's not like huge screams and like, coming behind you. That's what I really like, because it's not the obvious jump scares of people being pulled out of beds or whatnot. The backstory, I really like that you at first you just think, oh, okay, it's this story about these people who are putting on this. But the more you watch, the more backstory you get about the Abaddon Hotel and Andrew Tully and all that. And I think that really helps build the story. Stephen Cognetti did say that for him, it was there are 3, for those of you who don't know, there are 3 films. You have Hell House, you've got Hell House, the Abaddon Hotel, and Hell House, Lake of Fire. Stephen has always said that he saw them as one film in 3 acts. So I do think, although I believe the first one is significantly the best, and the third one is probably my second favorite, I think it is really interesting to watch them one after the other, or to watch all of them to really see a full story. Although I do think that some of the others, again, it depends. They can take away some of the mystery of this film, but it just depends on what you like. I would definitely say it's worth seeing them. And yeah, I really like at the end when the opening scene replays again, but this time we're familiar with the characters on the other side, and you kind of see it all come together. So I really like how it brings it full circle. And then pro, I mean, it's technically a pro, is, I put it in capitals, that scene in Paul's bedroom, because for me, I don't know what it is, and I watched it last night again, and maybe I'd calmed down a bit, but there was, and this scene we're referring to, guys, again, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't, then I guess don't listen to a review of the film. But there is a scene in which Paul, and we get a couple of these, Paul's talking to the camera at night. The first time we see he's talking and there's a reflection of the exit light in the background. You see somebody come in, he thinks it's Sarah, and he's like, oh, you okay? Just like, oh, this person then exits, no idea. Then there is another time, I believe, I think there's a second time where he's talking. I think somebody goes past I can't remember. There is another one where he talks. Actually, nothing happens in that one. He's just talking. And then the third one, he gets the camera up and there is a woman sitting behind him in the corner. I don't know what it was about this woman that just fucked me up. And as I said before, I see this woman every night now against my bedroom door when I go to bed, and I'm like, great. There's something about white eyes with the black pupils that just freak me out. So that scene, I remember watching it and genuinely for like 2 nights, it takes a lot to scare me, but there was just something about it. And it was because it wasn't a jump scare of like her running at it. She's just sitting there, and then he covers himself, takes it down, and she's facing him. Then he does it again, and she's a bit closer, and she goes and like stands up, and then the next time he disappears. So that scene to me, I always remember, and I always talk about it as one of my. It's just like it takes a lot to mess me up at this point, but I was like, wow, that don't know what it was, just the tension. I don't know. So, I mean, yeah, for me, I mean, I could go on all day. This is the thing, you know, I really do like this film. And I guess it doesn't really matter what anyone says. It's not going to change my mind. But, you know, there comes a time when we have to admit some faults. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with our cons. Well, they're going to be back with their cons of Hell House LLC.
You are listening to the Horror Hour with Ben, George, and Utaka.
And we are back. It is time for the part that I've been dreading since this episode was announced. We're going to talk about the cons of this movie. Do you know what, Ben? Let's start with you, because Utaka's going to take up the rest of the episode.
I don't have that many. It's more of a, well, first, I didn't really like the first 20 minutes, but that's kind of the case with most found footage movies. It takes a while to get into it. That's fine. Once I got to know the characters, I was along for the ride. But it took about 20 minutes for me to kind of warm up to the movie. But that happens with almost every movie, so that's not too bad. I wish that they were able to get some things across more. Like when that guy wanted to leave, and then the other guy says to him, like, you can't leave because of this reason. I don't know what that reason was. I could not figure out what it was. Do you know what it was?
Watch the sequel.
Right. And then also towards the end, I think that if they had not done the found footage for the actual night itself, if they had actually switched to actually using cameras so that we could actually know what happened, like 100%, and we could see everything, because I'm still a bit shaky on it all. Like, I don't 100% know what went down. So if they had not done found footage, but had actually switched to like a typical like standard camera, put it all across to us, but then we know how everyone else is seeing it, maybe it wouldn't have worked, but I think it just would have worked better for me, so that I could have known 100%. But other than that, it's more that not everything was put across as well as it could have. But I think I get the gist of it, and upon rewatch, it'll probably all make a lot more sense. I probably will rewatch this movie at some point. I really dug it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I don't really have a lot of cons. I think this creative team did a very good job with the story they wanted to tell. My only regret is that I wish they had a bigger budget to do it, and I wish it was more of a big deal movie, because I hate when you go back and watch horror movies and it's like, this is really good, but nobody cared about it. And nobody cared about this movie, and I wish that they did. I wish it was a bigger success, because it deserves it.
I agree. I think, you know, for me, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong here. Let me just quickly. Also, there is a director's cut, by the way, guys. It only has 8 extra minutes on, but apparently, I mean, I haven't actually watched that. Yesterday, I was watching Endings Explained on YouTube. Wanted to watch them for all the films, just to kind of get an overview if I missed anything. Oh shit, sorry, just threw my pen. And he said, you know, there's a director's cut that came out last year, and adds 8 extra minutes, and it's good. It fleshes out some of the more of the character scenes just with a bit of extra things. So anyway, that's what. But I mean, 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, like for a found footage indie horror film, like that's good. I mean, I know we can't put everything to Rotten Tomatoes, but for an example of, you know, just talking in general of horror films don't tend to get huge Rotten Tomato scores anyway. So I just wanted to put that across. And
then the really horrible ones get high scores, like Us.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I'm looking forward to whatever he's coming up with next. But yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I think maybe on rewatch, you might see it. I kind of liked the whole aspect of not really knowing what's going on. You're never 100% sure. Like you could never, and that's the whole point. Nobody ever really knows what happened that night. That is something that the sequels do explain, but it's a case of whether you want that, you know, that some people found that kind of ruined some of it, because I mean, I really liked it because it goes into a lot. There's so much more backstory, and I'm like, bitch. Although it is just a trilogy, I'm like, I could really see another one, put somewhere in the middle. But anyway, so yeah, I will let you. I agree with those. I understand, and I do. I'm going to just say one really quickly before I let you, Taka, go. But why did we give him those eyes? You can't be given those eyes when you know you're about to destroy this film. So don't come at me with I'm the victim over here.
Yeah, don't be a bitch. Come on. Go on, George.
I would say, for me, I liked the ending of how we saw what happened in Hell House. There was just something about the last few minutes of the actual film that I was like, I feel like something better could have been done there. But like, if it had ended right at the beginning and gone, with some of the interviews of the people, then I would have liked that. I understand what they were doing, and again, it makes more sense when you see the sequels. But yeah, I think if you're watching it as a standalone film, the last scene, when they return to Hell House, could have been maybe executed a little bit better. But I mean, that for me is just a tiny thing that could have been changed. So for me, I really don't have any particular cons. I really loved it. So yeah, Yutaka, please enlighten us with the film you watched.
Well, I actually agree with Ben though. In terms of the ending, I really would have like his idea. I would have liked, because that was a huge con for me, was the fact that, okay, I still don't really know what happened. I would have liked a clearer vision. I get that it was found footage. But even thinking about other found footage films, and again, I know in the 2015, they had better cameras back then, even just to, so that was a little rough for me. Because again, I really loved the story. So I was a little let down by not knowing truly what happened that night. So Ben, I totally agree with, it would have been nice to actually see. And I know the sequels, we'll talk. But that for me, and I know the part you're talking about, George, with Paul. First off, I loved Paul as a character. He was the only one that was really fleshed out, obviously, because he was in most of it, in my opinion. But that scene, I could not stop laughing. Like, if there is somebody in your room and you're going to hide under a blanket, I'm sorry. Like, Ben, what were your thoughts on that scene?
I wasn't as affected as I think George was.
I'm just an affected person.
Yeah, that for me, I was like, what? Get the fuck out of the room. Go. What are you gonna do? Yeah, I couldn't. That really that scene took it out of me. And then after, Paul disappears, so they've all been staying in Hell House, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now suddenly Tony's a part of the crew. Where you been, bud? Where you been?
Tony was there, but he was just not. He just wasn't.
He was just sleeping every time.
He was busy doing the camera work.
No, it was Paul.
Paul. I mean, doing the cameras, setting up for the.
Sure, but everything that happened at night, it's just Paul and Mac, and then Alex will come down for a hot second. But where's Tony? Where you been?
Tony was busy.
So I was like, all right. And so I thought it was very weird that suddenly now his character wants to leave, when I'm like, I thought you were already gone. And again, yes, Ben, they had that moment. And I'm sure, again, yes, the sequels, but I was just like, as a viewer, I was just like, all right, okay, well, yeah. And then I think the only other big thing, and it's such a stupid critique, so I if you can clown me for this one, but every time the actress or every time Sarah ran up the stair or ran, it was just silly looking, like women don't run. I don't know. It just looked like, was she purposely running like
Yutaka? Females don't run like that.
Females don't run. How about just a person doesn't run like that? Like it looked like they wanted to give an effect that maybe she was running fast, but really wasn't. Because there was no urgency, and it made me chuckle. I was like, this is hilarious. And so certain like things like that just took me out of the element, and it sucks because I know those are supposed to be like tense, scary moments, and because it took me out of the element, it took me out of the movie. Like I wasn't in that. I will say I enjoyed the beginning. I know Ben didn't like that first 20 minutes, but I actually liked getting to know the characters. I did. And I don't know. I think certain parts there were some really great creepy moments, but then there were some moments that I think they were trying to sell, and it just became comical. And so that's why I was just like, well, that sucks, because now I'm not like, you know. So since we all gave scores, if I were to give a score on this film, I would go 5.5.
That's ridiculous.
Again, I didn't say it was great, and I didn't say it was bad. I'm like right in the middle. I still finished it. I actually watched it 3 times so I could make sure I had my opinion.
This film was better than Fear Street 1978. And Ben's nodding his head.
I disagree with that, but okay. But you can. This is your film.
Well,
I get
this
it.
film actually had a structure.
Yeah.
You know, it knew where it was going. It wasn't all over the place. It wasn't just existing for the sake of a gimmick.
Yeah.
Like most found footage and most camp slasher films, like Fear Street 1978.
Yeah.
It had a reason
I get
to
it.
exist.
I get it. It's yeah. You know, regardless, you can attack 1978. That's cool. Go for that. But I'm just telling you my opinions on the film. I still have a lot of praise for certain aspects, but overall, I don't think that they pulled it together. It wasn't as tight as I guess you seem to feel it is. So I loved the story though. I really did. I liked the idea. I was, reading the synopsis. I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I'm going to be wrong. So I went in just, completely like, let's just sit down and watch it. So, and I watched it a couple times, 3 times, so I could make sure my opinion was this. Yeah, this is what I felt. And I will tell you, each scene though that I told you took me out of it. Every time that came up, I just started laughing. And I don't think that was the point. I think it was to scare you, but I was just like, this is comical. Sorry, George.
No, I'm
still happy I watched it. I am actually happy I watched it because I do love seeing new horror films. And I think the writer, I would like to see more work from him.
Yeah, I agree. I think and like I said last week, if you have a really great story and a great cast for a found footage film, they can really do great things. That's what I think this one did. And obviously I'm never going to say it's not a 10 out of 10, it's a 9 out of 10 for me, because there are parts of the little things that I would change. So I'm not sitting here saying it's the greatest horror film that's ever existed. So, I'm obviously, everyone's allowed their own opinion. Obviously there'll be times where I watched both films that you both like, and will probably end up saying something. So, that's the element of the game. That's the whole point. We're all different. The only thing I would say about this whole, I never really knew what happened in the end situation, is you like the Blair Witch Project, and you never know what happens in the end of Blair Witch. So I would just like to know. Yeah, I just think that. And you said that you watched that today.
How the visit ended.
Okay. Yeah, we do.
So you are
Catherine
correct.
Came running.
You are correct on that, George.
Yeah,
but
I know.
The thing about the Blair Witch is it actually still pulled off everything effectively. So, and you have to take yourself back. I know, but you guys in the internet age and cell phones and all this, it is completely different watching Blair Witch now as if you watched it when it came out. Like the marketing blitz for that was incredible, because the fact that everyone actually thought that happened, they didn't really like those actors were secluded. They did a really good job. So there's a reason it made all its money on that time.
There was a problem with that logic in that me and George are not relics.
You are
We
correct.
couldn't
I am
watch
old.
them?
But I'm just saying, so now you have got a film that has all this at their disposal, all of this, and we still get crappy camera work.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, back then, I expected the running, all this, even found footage. But for this 2015 found footage, this is what we get. I was like, because the other good thing about the Blair Witch is those three actors, they really sold it. They were committed, whereas I did not feel that about a couple of the cast members here. Also, because I think some of them just disappear for a while. So there's a difference. I'm sorry.
I think there's a difference, a complete difference, though, in the sense of what both movies were trying to convey at the time. The Blair Witch was trying to convey itself as a real documentary, whereas now we're all savvy enough to know that these found footage films aren't real. So although they still stay with the gimmicks of documentary, found footage, this footage has been discovered, it's only been found until now, all those sort of things. We are all aware that these aren't real. So I think I understand what you're saying, and and this is why it's interesting, because you have a completely different perspective, because you were able to see that film in a time where people were like, oh shit, is this real? Like, this is crazy. Whereas I grew up watching Paranormal Activity. So, everyone thought that was real, and that was 2009. And people were like, is it real? The first one.
But Paranormal Activity, though, pulled it off. It did what it needed to do.
Did it though?
Paranormal
the
Activity
first one
did, but what happened with that, and I'm a huge Paranormal Activity fan, and hopefully we'll get to that at some point, the series. Then it'll be a Georgia in the episode where I just talk about that series, because I really like Paranormal Activity. But I think that's something that that Hell House wanted to avoid, because they could have gone with the whole idea of doing security camera footage rather than GoPros. But I think Paranormal Activity, it overdid found footage films with CCTV. Because it was all of the, obviously there were times when they had the handheld one, of course, but as they went on, it was very much CCTV. Sure. So I think, and I do agree. I'm not going to sit here and say this is the greatest film. So I don't want to, and I'm never going to say that you're wrong, because that's not me. Everyone's allowed their own opinion. Didn't
you just say that earlier that I was wrong?
I probably said that you weren't right, and that's different.
Oh, so okay. Keep backtracking on that one.
Well, look, I think the point you made about the cameras is kind of in the last act for me, is because I think there are answers. And I think the director, I thought it was all very well done, put together, the way everything looked. I would have actually liked to have seen it, because I couldn't. I think they definitely planned it all out. And I think that there are answers, but I wish that we could have seen what these people were planning, because the way that we did see it, we didn't see anything. That's my biggest complaint, because I think it was a missed opportunity.
So I will just say on that from what I read in the director's cut, that final scene and what happens in the basement, there is like an extra 3 or 4 minutes of exactly what happened in that basement to Melissa and things. But the director didn't have the CGI budget, the VFX budget at the time to do it until, so he redid it like last year. So
That's kind of nice. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I tried to find last night. I'll try, if I can find it, I'll send it to you guys. I think
I couldn't see it on Streamio. I would have seen it if it was there.
Yeah, I don't think it is. But
it's on physical media.
Hell House, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know about the director's cut though. That only came out last year. I know the director's cut is on Amazon Prime, but obviously it's at a cost. But yeah, because I haven't watched that, so I would like to see it, because although there's only 8 extra minutes, I think a lot of them are to do with the end scene, which
I think that could change my opinion. So I might have to search that out and watch it. See, and I had some valid criticisms, sir. I didn't just say, "Oh, this was a terrible film." It was medium. I'm not mad that I watched it. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but I'm not truly hating on it. This isn't like, hating on like Suicide Squad.
Yeah. And making up lies about that film that don't exist.
So
anyway.
So I mean So I'm
Someone's
sorry.
jealous of Harley Quinn's natural blonde hair and good extensions.
We'll move on.
Oh, stream beyond the trailer,
That's
guys.
on me.
I will say though that I
We'll
will.
cut that part out.
I'm not cutting. She's not going to listen to this.
That's true.
I will just say to anyone who is thinking of watching this, because I'm nice like that, I would say that there is, if you're the strobe lights that are used in one scene that even I was kind of like at times. So if you are affected by strobe lights, just be aware, because it doesn't say anything about it in the beginning, I don't think. But yeah, because that scene where they're practicing the light, even I
liked that scene, actually. Can I tell you? I really did like that scene.
That fills me with joy. Please talk about the
It
positives.
reminded me of Helen's death scene, and I know what you did last summer, so I got PTSD.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I really liked that scene because I love when they do stuff like that. And even though you know it's coming, I enjoyed that Paul or Gore Abrams, he sold that fear, and that I loved that. And I mean, I really, really enjoyed that scene. And all right, one other positive. The whatever clown mask or that clown was creepy, and I liked that too. So I again, I would recommend it if it's free
on streaming.
Yeah,
you're not talking about piracy.
That is correct.
Okay.
In the US, it is free on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
and the sequels are on Shudder.
Shudder's
£5
please give Shudder your money. That's a great service.
It's £5.
It's an amazing service.
Yeah. So, guys, if you just talk about this before we move on to some of our other and finish off here. If you do want to watch this film, it is available on Amazon Prime at a cost in the UK, but I believe, as Yutaka said, in the US it is free. And if you do want to watch the sequels, which I would highly recommend, you can watch them on Shudder. There is Hell House LLC, The Abaddon Hotel, and Hell House 3, The Lake of Fire. So yes, any final thoughts from you two to wrap this up before we head to just some of our other favorite fan footage films? Ben?
Very good movie, would highly recommend it. Some of the problems are solved by the sequel, so I'm gonna have to check them out.
Right, sorry, Yutaka, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm glad I watched it. It's a horror film, so yeah, and it was free in the US. So
okay, and for me, I love it. I would implore you to watch it, even just to see if it is your cup of tea or not. Just to say you've watched it, because I think is one of my favorite. To me, it is in the last 10 years probably the best found footage film. Oh, I just realized, when did Thingo come out? Actually, was that 2014?
The Visit was 2015.
Oh, it's the same year. Okay, it's one of the best found footage films to come out in the last 10 years. Thank you very much.
I mean, look, if you love Satan and Satan movies like me, like the satanic things about this film are freaky.
Really interesting. So yeah, but I love cults and I love all that stuff.
Yeah,
so this was really cool. Okay, we'll take a quick break and then we'll talk about our favorite found footage films to round off this episode.
You are listening to the Horror Hour with Ben, George, and Yutaka.
And we are back. Now is the time of the evening, the day, the morning, whatever time you're listening to this, where we're going to be discussing some of our other favorite found footage films. I mean, as most people are aware, as I said last week, it is my favorite genre, so most of them are my favorite found footage films. But of course, I will let the guys take a lead in this because I know they also do have some favorites in that genre. So who wants to go first? Don't all shout at once. Okay. Thanks, Yutaka, for opening up there.
It's almost a tie for me again. I know the old man loves Blair Witch, but I have that emotional attachment of seeing that in theaters when it came out. And again, the internet was still kind of in its infancy. It wasn't, we couldn't really research things like this and tell. So the idea that they promoted it as a documentary, they really sold that. Genius. And I mean, again, there's a reason it ended up making one of the best profits for an indie film for a very long time. But I liked it. I really enjoyed it. Definitely now, if you watch it, it's certainly aged. I will say that. It's not one that's, I would say, held up as great. It's also had crappy sequels, which bring it down a little. Yeah, you like Book of Shadows, so don't come at me. But yeah, I think Blair Witch did a really good job. I also think with the found footage, the fact that it was only 3 people really worked. I think the more you try and add, it can get a little cluttered. So for me, I really liked that. But I know Ben's pick, and I really like Ben's pick as well. So I'll let Ben go.
Well,
Ben.
with that, I have a question. Because there's like found footage films where, like, through the CCTVs, you said, through like little stupid like handheld cameras, but then there's also these movies that are shot through online, and I'm talking about the Unfriended movies, Searching, and Host. Do those count, or are they a different genre altogether? Because...
No, they count. Host is actually probably my most recent favorite found footage movie.
Searching's not a horror film, but it was very well done.
It's a found footage movie. It's not necessarily a found footage horror movie, but it was incredible. I thought it was aliens. I thought the whole thing was like an alien took his daughter or something.
And then you find out,
yeah. But can't wait for Searching 2. Come on our podcast, please, cast and director. We'd appreciate it. But if that's the case, then The Visit is absolutely one of the most last year I really got to watch some interesting horror films. And I would say that these are the ones that scared me the most. Unfriended Dark Web, Host, and The Visit. All absolutely terrified me for different reasons. The Visit, because the twist blew my mind and just completely terrified me, shocked me to my core. When it's just there's just a few words. Those aren't your grandparents. Oh my God. And it just sends you into this frenzy in your mind. You don't know what to do. It was just incredible. Then you have Host, which went, oh my God, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
There's no movie last year. Like, The Lodge was my favorite movie from last year, which is one of those kind of pretentious horror movies, but it's the only one I actually like. The Lodge was very good, but Host is a solid second pick because what they pull off in that film is absolutely terrifying. A seance gone wrong, a seance over Zoom because of the pandemic. How relatable. Like, fucking deadly. And it was so scary. I watched this at, like, it was very late. It's under an hour long. So I watched it at like 1:00 and it was pitch dark. I watched it in my room on this bed right behind me. Terrified me. And then you have Unfriended Dark Web, which I know people don't like, but it really, I'm someone who's like into like conspiracy theories and stuff like oh God, they're all around us and stuff like that. The way that this movie kind of talks about how like there's like there's a darkness and it inherently comes with the internet, and the way that it's the end of the movie where it was revealed that there's like all these thousands of people placing bets on different variables that could happen, and like they're all over the world. They're in London, they're right where all these people live, and the videos that you see of what they've done to people, and it would just fucked me up greatly, because it's like, you know, you don't know how something like this can happen, yet it happens all the time, and you view it as, oh God, what a horrible group of people that did that, but you know, like, it just makes you really rethink society, and that's what was the terrifying thing about that movie for me. And I've seen it twice, and both times it terrified me. So I love that movie too. So those would be my favorite.
Okay. I agree with all of those. I loved Host. I thought it was such a brilliant film, and it was like, because it was short, it was just the right amount of time. And I think that's something that found footage films are better with, a shorter time, because, you know, it depends on, you know,
it was under an hour.
Actually, the writer and executive producer Jed Shepard is also working on a new found footage film called Dashcam for Blumhouse. which was announced the other day, which looks super cool. I'm really excited about. And he's also working on this really cool game, which is called Ghosts, which comes out, I think it's next. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, next February. So it's going to be like a game where you have to play it at 10 p.m. at night, and everyone plays it together online. It's like done through like an augmented where people, it's actors that are doing it. So I think it's really exciting to see some new ideas coming out of found footage and how those are going to change. And I think, this is something that with found footage nowadays, it is about how can we up the genre or how can we change it around. I think films like Unfriended, film.
The first one. I'm sorry, I didn't like that second one.
Okay.
Yep, you can give me that finger. That second one was trash.
It really wasn't. It was terrifying. It was even more scary. And I do love the first one. First one's really good, but I think people have talked about that a lot because there's a lot of affinity for it. Rightfully so. It's incredible. But
I think the characters were more likable in a sense, and you got to spend more time. The whole dark web, I love the conspiracy theory, but I think for what you're trying to pull off, that was just
it's my worst fucking nightmare. Like how I love that little thing where they found that girl like in 30 seconds, the way that they like looked up the person, the university, then they got like a picture and they used that to like find her address. Freaked me out. That's like just my worst fucking nightmare right there.
Fair enough.
Because it could happen. You never know.
Well, don't go picking up random laptops. That's lesson 1.
True. But yeah, so in terms of like I say I've got like quite a long list, so I don't want to do all of them. But I really liked the VHS movies, which I thought were great. VHS 2 and VHS Viral, and I believe there's another one on the way.
Oncoming Cheddar.
I'm excited. I also really love, there's a film called Alien Abduction. I'm a big fan of, I really like alien abduction films. I love The Fourth Kind with Mila Jovovich. I thought that was brilliant, and that film actually terrified me. The ending is so creepy. Yeah, so another film that I really liked is called The McPherson Tapes. And it is another alien abduction film. I think the original one I said was in the late 80s, and they did a sequel in the 90s. Well, no, sorry, a reboot in the 90s, that I really liked. So I recommend that. I also really like the Grave Encounter movies. I don't know if anyone's seen them. I really recommend Grave Encounters. I think there's just 2. There may be 3. It's set about a team who go to a extremely haunted, abandoned mental asylum in America, and it is great. It's another like indie film, but the trailer I remember watching, like I was like, oh my god, this is so great. I love the Paranormal Activity films. I think, and not all of them hit the mark, but I really enjoyed them as a franchise, and to see them, they are the biggest found footage franchise that's ever happened. So I mean, kudos for them to be able to keep it up this long. I'm really excited because I saw an interview with Jason Blumhouse, who of course the new one is coming out on Paramount Plus next March, I believe. And he was like, okay, if you guys want to do this, you need to literally reinvent it. And he was like, they have reinvented it. So I'm really excited because we in Blumhouse we trust. Obviously I spoke about it in Taking a Deborah Logan, another great found footage film. Which
love that film. Really,
really good. The Visit, of course, another one. I really enjoyed As Above, So Below. I don't know, it had some issues, but I really liked the main actress who played Scarlett, and I thought she was a really cool actress, and I really
enjoyed. Who was the main actress in that again? Let me look up.
I believe her name is she retweeted me. Yeah, Perdita Weeks. Perdita, I think it's Perdita.
It is. I don't think if I've seen her in a film.
So I really like that. Cloverfield, not a horror film, but it's a lot of fun.
Cloverfield's great.
That first one's a horror movie. That one's pretty scary.
Yeah, it was great.
It killed my favorite character, but yes, that was. Oh, Perdita's in. Oh, yeah, she's got a history in terms of work.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question about the Cloverfield things. Do you think that, because the way I see it, I always thought that Arrival, Annihilation, and A Quiet Place were all some kind of Cloverfield type movie, because they're all from Paramount. They all felt very similar, like a similar vibe. Now, I'm probably wrong, but I've just always seen Arrival, Annihilation, and the A Quiet Place movies in some version of the Cloverfield. Because again, you never really know what happened with Cloverfield.
What, in the same universe, you mean?
Yeah, I feel like they're all in the same universe somehow. I
I
don't know how.
thought
But
I read something about that there was a possibility of that. But then I don't know in terms of how, like, time-wise, how it adds up, but maybe.
God, J.J. Abrams is a mess sometimes with Cloverfield, just because he's always like, they have Cloverfield, and then they have Cloverfield Lane, which I also loved. Cloverfield Lane was great.
Yeah.
And then they had that one on Netflix that was supposed to. Oh God, that was horrible. But I think in Paradox, you do see the start of what created Cloverfield.
It's the start.
So the problem with Cloverfield, though, is I don't think J.J. Abrams knows how he wants to tell what really happened.
Like Star Wars.
Yeah. So it's upsetting because Cloverfield was a great film. Did it need sequels? I don't think so. I really don't.
Well, it wasn't going to, was it? Originally, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Cloverfield Lane wasn't going to be Cloverfield Lane. It was going to be another film that was that was going to turn out that he actually was just keeping them locked in this bunker. And then when Star Wars did good, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to get some money. Let's make a sequel to Cloverfield." And then he added the whole situation. But I mean, it stars the Queen. So I mean,
Elizabeth wins.
Yeah, who is just the best. And I saw this. What's that new film that she's doing that's coming out?
Oh, I can't wait, Kate.
Yeah. Now, Kate, somebody on Twitter, and I was like, oh my God, they had a shot of her with that gun and put it next to an Alien poster.
She looked exactly like Ripley.
And I was like, give me her as Ripley right now. Or give me her as a new...
Ripley's daughter.
Yeah.
Ripley's daughter.
Ooh, yeah.
Like now. Grown-up Newt, let's go. Anyway, and just to finish off, Rec. I really loved the Rec series, or REC. I never really know how you're supposed to pronounce them. I call it Rec. Record. And the first two I thought were brilliant films. The second one always used to scare me. The third one is very different. It does a mix and match of both found footage and normal camera work. So it'd be something similar, like you say, Ben, that you can see a bit more of what's going on, because it does both. And then Genesis was not great, the last one, but hey, people just don't know how to make endings to films anymore. But hey, they were all great. Also, does anyone ever remember Devil Inside?
Yeah.
That was, I remember when that trailer came out, and everyone was like, oh my God, this is the scariest film ever. But it wasn't.
Is that the one that bombed? Like, it came out, it did really good, but then got like a F or a D+ cinema score.
Connect the cuts. That one, and she's like that. And she's got the upside down crosses here. It was all
yeah, I never wanted to see that, so.
Yeah, it was all right. And what about Chronicle? I really like Chronicle. There's a sequel coming out.
I love Chronicle.
They've just announced a sequel.
Dane DeHaan's actually a really underrated actor. I really do like him.
I loved him in A Cure for Wellness, even though everybody hated that film.
I hate that movie.
I love it.
And I was really looking forward to it as well, but I thought he was great in it, and so was Mia Goth.
Yeah.
But I even liked Valerian.
Hey, okay. I don't know if I can agree with that, but yeah. I really like Dane DeHaan. I think he's great. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see where found footage goes from here. For example, with the new Paranormal Activity film that comes out next year, I'm excited to see how they refresh that franchise, but also how they refresh found footage as a whole. Do you guys think that found footage has legs to last long? Or do you think...
I think the updates that Searching, Unfriended, and Host made will make sure that there's still things you can do.
And I want to throw in The Visit, because that twist, Ben, you are like, that twist it turned me upside down. Like, I'm like, whoa, oh, because that even had today's technology and everything. Like, I was legit that M. Night Shyamalan can sometimes pull off a twist, and sometimes it gets like, but that was pure genius, incredibly freaky and unsettling. And so I do think if you can get that twist, or it doesn't even need that, but if you can still well, no, actually, yeah. I'm gonna go back on that. I'm sorry. If you can get like a hook, you can really pull it off. Because I think with found footage, the problem is sometimes it could be budget, or sometimes it could look low budget, which is fine. You just have to have the cast, the story, but then there has to be something that just rocks you to the core, especially in horror, or else you're just gonna be like, this is boring.
Yeah, we're sorry, but I need to talk about this. This is a story. It was like or something. Okay, I'll depend on my grandma said I'll bring you to see a movie. I said, yeah, let's go see Hereditary. People are saying that this is such like a really modern horror film. It's really scary. And then I watched it, and I found it so laughable. First, it wasn't scary. Was not scary.
No.
It was very funny the way that she was running around to the fucking ceiling at the end. People were laughing. Nobody was afraid. It was very boring. Didn't know what it was. And I felt like, just like Us, it had no answers to the questions. That's the way I see it. Now, people think that there is. I just think it was a fucking mess. When I rewatched it, I didn't hate it, but that initial walking out of it, I just hate. It was just the most pretentious movie I thought I'd ever seen. And coming from a pretty pretentious person, if you're like bad for me, that's pretty terrible. But I didn't hate Midsommar as much. I don't know how I feel about that movie. It's weird, disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Wicker Man did it better, but yeah, I agree. Hereditary was never
a good movie.
No, it was really overhyped, and I think they were trying to make this whole thing like they were trying to, and they did the same with Midsommar. Midsommar's all right, but it's a case of like, look, there is a way you can make a horror film without, that's good and that has some artistic value that's not being like over the top dramatic, like they were trying to be something.
I think John Krasinski and Mike Flanagan do that really well.
Yeah, A Quiet Place is a perfect example of a horror film that is completely done well, that doesn't need to have like this whole artistic thing.
The Lodge is like the only one of these movies that I actually really did enjoy and love, because even though it's really slow, it moves at the pace of a snail. It's the only film that out of like all of these, The Lighthouse, The Witch, the Hereditaries, the Midsommars, it's the only one that actually had answers to the questions, and really satisfying ones. Like really satisfying ones. So anyways, they're not found footage films. I'm sure we'll have a pretentious horror episode at some point, and we'll talk all about them then.
Exactly. I think we should, on that note, let's finish up. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. Thank you for listening to the Horror Hour. As always, you can join us next week when we'll be interviewing Danielle Berger, who is, of course, famously known as Soccer Mom from Army of the Dead, amongst some of her other work. We're going to be talking to her all about her stunt work, horror films, of course, her favorite horror film, what it was like working with the Snyders, everything, what stunts, just everything you can imagine. So we are super excited that she'll be joining us next week. So make sure that you do subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Plus, if you haven't already, you can go and follow us on social media. It is at The Horror Hour TV on Instagram and Twitter. You can also follow our YouTube channel as well to keep up with all the latest news and information. And of course, if you want to ask us anything, you can as well. You can drop us a question at The Horror Hour TV. But once again, thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this. And of course, please do go and check out Hell House LLC, available on some streaming platform near you if you enjoyed this. And yeah, we will see you next week for our interview. So it's goodbye from us. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Horror Hour. See you next time.